My first duty is to welcome you to the first Singapore Aviation CEO Forum. First ever one that the organisers Experia have done. So welcome from Experia on behalf of Experia, on behalf of FlightGlobal, who are organising it in conjunction with Experia, and of course on behalf of our sponsor CFM International. Gail, thank you very much as well. Welcome to you all. Welcome to you, our invited guests. Just to let you know that there are media in the audience. That doesn't hamper anything because I'm also media. But we have an invited assembly of people from all across the industry here. There will be a program on FlightGlobal after this, and also you will see stories on the press and in the dailies tomorrow from this. So, without any more ado, I'm going to introduce our esteemed panel in no particular order, and I'll do this. Actually, I will do it from my far left. So, welcome Lim Kim Hai. Thank you very much for coming. Kim Hai is a Singaporean businessman. He is a founding shareholder of Rex Airlines in 2002, right back then, right? And Rex is Australia's largest regional and domestic airline. That's what it says on your website anyway, Kim Hai, so I'm believing it. So welcome, thank you. To his right and to the second one in there, that's Gail Mayhoost. Gail is, I'm looking at your LinkedIn, you're 5 years right on the dot, more or less, of leading CFM. Good job, sir. Good job. He's had a long and distinguished career in the French, in fact the global aerospace industry, and you're very welcome, Gail. We're welcome to hear from you as the event goes on. Next to Gail, we have Robert Martin, and any of you who've been in Singapore, been in the air finance world forever, it seems. Probably Robert was, if you look at his picture on the screen there, he looks about 15 there, but he has been in the air finance world since it was kind of invented, more or less. Since the early 90s anyway, definitely. And he was the founder of Singapore Aircraft Leasing Enterprises. Did I get that right, Robert? That's what it's called?
Correct, that's what it was called, yes.
Yes, of course, that's what it was called back in 93. And now he leads BOC Aviation, which is one of the powerhouses in the air finance lease world. And talking of powerhouses in that world, very pleased to welcome Donald Slattery to the podium. Donald, thank you very much for joining us. Donald runs Avalon. Donald also has been in the air finance business since it was more or less invented, with something called GPA back in Ireland, when air finance really started kicking off, or the leasing world really started coming to fruition. He was chairman of RBS Aviation in the early 2000s, and he's been the CEO of Avalon since 2010. Welcome, Donald, thank you. To Donald's right, we have Bo Lingham, who is the Group Chief Executive of AirAsia Aviation Group, which is a new way of concocting, a new way of organising some of the AirAsia airline units. Now, he's been with AirAsia since 2001. He started as ground operations manager. That's what your bio tells me. So, you've seen everything through the business, and Tony's promoted you up through the ranks over that time, and now you are Group CEO, and congratulations on that, sir.
Thank you.
He's also been in the publications and the music industry with EMI and Warner Music, so you've had some fun out there in your career as well. And last but not least, on the Zoom call from his office in Kuala Lumpur, he apologises for not being able to be here in person, but it's Captain Isham Ismail, who is the Chief Executive of Malaysia Airlines. Captain Isham, he has a 40-year career in the airline industry, in fact almost, I think, exclusively with Malaysia Airlines. He was a pilot with the airline from 1979, and then he got the bug for getting more money and got management positions about a decade after that, and he's laughing because he knows how right I am. And he moved up the management ranks until he became the CEO, somewhat reluctantly maybe, but anyway, he got the job in 2017 after being Chief Operating Officer for several years. So, welcome Captain Isham as well. I'm going to go onto my roving mic now. I'm not allowed to go out there, so you're not going to get attacked by me on this show, not quite yet anyway. But we do have mics in the room, so if you do want to ask a question as we go, I would encourage you to do so, and I'll try and spot you. If I can't spot you, I've got 5 people up here who are going to spot you. So, again, do ask questions as we go. But I'm going to kick off with a question for our airline CEOs. Actually, I'm going to start with Kim Hai, just to give me a brief answer. I was thinking about this. You run an airline. I think it's a bit of a miracle that you're still alive. Is it a miracle that you're still here in 2022 after what you've been through, Kim Hai?
I think it's a miracle for all airlines, not only for Rex.
It is a miracle. I'm going to ask you, Bo, as well. Is it a minor miracle that AirAsia is still, not just AirAsia perhaps, but maybe AirAsia?
I echo Kim Hai's recall what he mentioned that of course we are extremely lucky to be alive, and not only that, and we had to endure 2 years of hardship with having to lay off staff, put them on furlough, and it also gave us a good opportunity to re-engineer the whole business, where that's how the birth of Super App, and with the food delivery, food and all the OTA parts of it, and teleport the cargo side. On the airline side, what we did was we started to work on digitalization of seamless travel through airports, and also with COVID came a lot of documentation, a lot of testings and so forth. So we are still on the journey of automating all of them.
So your miracle is still work in progress, is
Yeah.
it? But it's a miracle, isn't it?
It is.
Captain Isam, let's hope we can get you loud and clear. Is it a minor miracle that MAS is really still in the air?
Mark, thank you. Once again, to my peers, please apologize that I'm not being able to be there physically. Indeed, it is a miracle, and it does demonstrate the resilience, perseverance, and steadfast of airlines business, and it's well represented by all airlines globally. The pandemic has brought an economic catastrophic events globally, and airlines, as all of us know, are not spared. As early as March 2020, Malaysia Aviation Group, we eventually realized it has to be more than a meaningful discussion with our creditors. So we rallied, and as we always believe, God is the master of all planners. Malaysia Aviation Group emerged stronger today, post the restructuring for 2022 and post 2020, and ready for the future market. But in summary, it is indeed a miracle, but it does demonstrate the resilience of airline business and the people who actually runs the business and who operates the business. Thank you, Mark.
I'm going to ask Dommel as well. I mean, for you as Avalon, you don't want any of these guys to fail, for that miracle to dwindle. So just tell us a little bit from your perspective about, how you ended up at the end of 2021 as a business. Just give us Avalon's sort of pocket story, if you would.
Yeah, so Avalon entered the crisis, thankfully, as an investment grade lessor, which allowed us to continue to fund ourselves in the capital markets during the crisis. The reality is that we had to transfer ultimately a lot of capital off our balance sheet to support our airlines globally. So it was a significant liquidity transfer.
Just tell us in English what that means, Dommel.
Well, it means the airlines couldn't pay us.
Thank you.
I hope that's clear enough.
Yes.
There's a reason you're a journalist.
Thank you.
I'm joking. So the airlines couldn't pay us, and we had to survive without the incoming cash flow. So we had to ensure that we had enough capital to survive the crisis. And thankfully, from an Avalon perspective, we actually ended the crisis with better credit metrics than going into the crisis. But I think the moment of truth for us in the last 2 years was that our relationship with a number of our key airlines has deepened profoundly. Because
Even though they haven't paid you.
Well, you make a decision whether an airline is a broken franchise or a broken balance sheet. And if an airline has a broken franchise, then they shouldn't exist. If they have a broken balance sheet, our job is to help them through. And we did that, and I think we will garner the benefits for many years to come from that, by having sound, deep relationships and hopefully recurring deal flow.
Dommel, thank you. That is fantastic insight. Robert, what about your perspective from BAC Aviation's point of view? Do you concur? Do you have a different tone? But what's yours?
Okay, some similarities, don't know some differences. This is our 5th downturn we've been through, and we're part of Bank of China Group, And one of the things we always do, we set up a 5-year plan every 5 years. We have a base plan and we have a downturn plan. And the downturn plan says, what do we do if there's a crisis? Now, nobody could have anticipated how deep this crisis was going to be. The sort of closest to it was probably the post-September 11th period in 2001, and then followed on with SARS here in Asia in 2003. The key thing is, you have to make sure you have access to liquidity during that period. And throughout this period, we've maintained about $6 billion of backstop credit lines and cash that have allowed us to do two things. The first thing we did was we basically went out, the moment we saw coronavirus happening here in Asia, to other parts of the world, and we committed actually $7 billion of balance sheet back in 2020. Most of it was done between the months of March and June. The second thing then we did was we knew that it takes time for airlines to work through their cash. And so then the period when airlines need help will come after that period. And so then I would say 2021 was mainly spent helping support those airlines who needed support. And that support can come in three ways. You basically say, it's either a short-term problem that can be resolved very quickly, or it's a longer-term problem that needs a restructuring. A number of carriers in this part of the world, had to go through restructuring, or echoing a point Donald just made, there's a point where the business model is broken, it doesn't work, and then the aircraft need to be redeployed. And so as we looked at each case individually, we decided which of those routes we were going to take, and then basically executed on it.
Gail, let's bring you into the conversation, sir. Give us your reflection, and perhaps adding on to how Donald and Robert have had to help airlines as well. What's been CFM's role and experience, please?
Well, we have to remember where we're coming from, Mark. 2019, I was sitting in a panel like that, and one of the conversation was, is there going to be a downturn? And in 2019, you almost sounded pessimistic if you were talking about downturn, because we all remember it was incredible. And as we all know, March, April 2020, the traffic fell down to 20% to what it was a few months before. So 2021 is a kind of a transition towards recovery. At the end of the year, the traffic, narrow-body traffic, where CFM is more invested in, was about 75% to what it was before the pandemic. 90% in US domestic, plus 8% last month in Europe. So there are evidently signs of recovery. For us at CFM, it was difficult because, as you know, we had to stop producing engines in 2020. We were on our way to deliver more than 2,000 engines, LEAP engines, in 2020. When the pandemic hit, we almost had to stop deliveries. We went from 40 plus engines a week to virtually nothing. So now we are restarting the supply chain, and we are in a good position to deliver the engines that the airframers are asking for. And now we're looking towards coming back to where we're supposed to be around 2023 for the number of engines produced. The LEAP engine has been incredibly used during the year 2021. We had, at the end of the year, 2.5 more cycles than we had with the LEAP in 2019. Evidently, the airlines are using the fuel-efficient engine in first. Very few retirements, also, I have to say. The CFM-powered fleet retired was about 80 aircraft in 2021. So we have 23,000 engines in operations, 5Bs and 7Bs, so almost nothing when it comes to retirement, nothing to impact our aftermarket business, I would say. The shop visit activity is lagging behind a little bit, the traffic recovery, but because airlines have been using green time. But there are less and less green times, less and less CFM-powered airplane in storage. Only 16% of the fleet is in storage right now, and you can see versus 22% for the narrow-body fleet, so you can see the CFM engines are coming out first. And 2023 was also for us the year where we managed to sold 2,300 engines, LEAP engines. Now we have reached the 20,000 mark of engine sold, firm and commitment. Despite a tough year, we were able to do that. So it was quite an accomplishment.
Gail, thank you. Tough year, absolutely. What I want to ask, I'm going to go back to our airline colleagues now, because I'm getting more than a sense. You've told us, Dommel, Robert, and Gail, you've told us how your businesses have adapted and by no means is the job done. You're going to need more money, maybe. You're going to whatever it is in your world you need. You are doing it because that's what you do. But you're not in bad shape. I'm getting the sense of. Our airline colleagues still have got quite a lot of work to do, Bo. You've got a fleet of whatever, I don't know. You're transitioning your fleet. You've got liquidity issues as well.
Yes.
Tell us where you are and what you're going to do this year.
We have a fleet about 200, and I think only about 1/3 of those planes that are flying now because of all the restrictions. And as Donald said, and they've been great partners with all our lessors. They've been very accommodating. We have restructured a lot of our lease payments that we couldn't. They've helped us in many ways, and so that was a great relief for us to have lasted this long. And I think the relationship that we had with a lot of our creditors, partners, it's not only the lessors, almost everyone that we have worked with and restructured a lot of the deals and asked them for grace period for, most probably for a year, from even 2 years. And so they've been great partners, that's one. And the second thing that we did was, of course, we raised some funds, which I'm sure all of you have read about it, how the group has raised funds. That's one part of it. So we are still in the process of trying to raise funds, and hopefully in the next couple of months, some things will come through.
How much do you need, Bo? Got plenty of bankers in the room. They'll lend you a few
If
pennies.
anyone can give me 2 to 3 billion, that'll be super great.
Million or billion?
Billion.
Oh, just checking. Thank you.
Million, I'll take it from you.
Yeah, right.
You need to
Maybe
give me
Dommel
some,
can give you a couple of mil. Sorry, Captain Nizam, come in. That was Captain Nizam.
I was asking Bo to give me some of the funds as well, actually.
Okay. I wish.
So
Maybe you can share it. Maybe you just merge and just have it done. What do you think?
that's
What do you mean no? Let's have a bit of consideration. We're strategy men. Come on.
Let me divert this slightly, Mark.
Yes.
I would like to take this opportunity to once again extend our utmost appreciation to all our 75 creditors, Avalon included, CFM, to arrive in a very amiable agreement with us in a very uncertain environment. And thank you for believing in us, to the aircraft lessors and OEMs.
I think all of them need a clap of hands. I think they were great help. So I think they've been great partners.
They did it out of the kindness of their bank balances.
Correct. But what I want to stress for Malaysia Aviation Group after the successful restructuring in March 2021 that ended, we emerged stronger today. Malaysia Aviation Group, we have successfully completed the exercise and able to restructure our cost base. We have successfully strengthened our balance sheet, addressed 15 billion ringgit of our liabilities, and we secured savings of over the life of our key aircraft, restructured our balance sheet as I mentioned, and most importantly, we able to secure a significant liquidity support from all creditors through payment deferrals and moratoriums, and we are able to variabilize our fixed cost structure on aircraft operating leases and a number of maintenance contracts in 2021, 2022. So thank you for believing in us. To the aircraft to our creditors, aircraft lessors who's present today. The good news is that Malaysia Aviation Group has been cash positive since October 2021. Thank you for supporting us and thank you for believing in us. We will not disappoint you.
Very good. Well said, Captain Nizam. And I believe that as part of that process, you signed some leases just yesterday with for some 737 Maxes. I'm right on saying that, is that correct?
Yes, Mark, I knew that was a question that you're going to ask us. We went through a robust RFP campaign Q4 last year, and eventually we have the board, we recommended to the board, we are partnering ALC for the operating lease of our 25 737 MAX 8, and with the first aircraft due to be delivered in May 2023. And we'll continue introducing the aircraft until 2026. This is actually a follow-through of our restructuring exercise, which ended in March 2021, where we structured the terms of our order book with Boeing. And as part of the terms, we were given the option to swap our order book aircraft with lease aircraft. For that, I would like to extend my utmost appreciation to Boeing as well. Mark, to confirm, yes, 25 aircraft.
I'm sure they're delighted to take some 737 Maxes out of the backlog into flying. That's when we start making money, right? Kim Hai, just a reflection from you on your business. Have you needed to, and apologies that I don't know, have you needed to go and get some relief, get some more borrowing? You know, how has your business managed on that front?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to take one step back. You mentioned about Miracle, and probably many people in the audience are not really aware of the size of the problem. So if I just give one number close to Singapore, Singapore Airlines before COVID was probably worth about 10 billion. Because of COVID, they have to raise close to 20 billion Singapore dollars. So COVID not only destroyed one Singapore airline, it destroyed two Singapore airlines. That gives you straight away an idea of how big the miracle was that many airlines are still flying today. With regards to REX, we don't have any creditors. We have paid all our bills, not because we are better than other people, but because the Australian government has been very supportive of the airlines in Australia, particularly the regional airlines where we are the dominant airline. So if we have to thank, we will thank the Australian government, but we don't have any creditors.
That's a nice position to be in. Great, well done. Let's move on from this part of the discussion. I'm just looking out to see if there's any questions. No, for the time being. Let's move on to the market outlook. And I won't ask everybody to go around every single one because otherwise it'll take too long. But let's have a view. I just want to talk about Asia Pacific as part of that recovery, because Asia Pacific was such a powerhouse of growth for air travel. I'm going to start with Robert actually, and to reflect on that and the lack of Chinese international, domestic, yeah, fine, great, massive, but the pace of the recovery, Robert, and then I'll ask another question to somebody else about business travel recovery. But Robert, just give us and then an outlook from you, please.
Okay, well, just before I do that, can I just bridge from the last subject to this?
Yeah, that's a good job. I should have done that, Robert, but thank you for that.
Most of the restructurings are done. What hasn't happened in this industry is raising the new equity that is required to grow going forwards. And we have three potential headwinds coming this year. Whilst traffic will grow, fuel prices have gone back up again. We're over $100 a barrel. I think it was 104.84 this morning here in Singapore. US dollar interest rates are going up. And so we need to think carefully about what's happening. And in other parts of the world, we're not seeing this in Asia yet, but it could be coming. We're seeing a lot of wage inflation and commodity price inflation that will feed through potentially into any contract with escalation. And so I think it's very important that industry, while it has the opportunity, raises new equity. Otherwise, we could find ourselves back in the same position in 2 or 3 years' time. So the restructurings are done. Next stage is equity, as far as I'm concerned.
And where's that going to come from, Robert?
That has to come from the markets. And so the markets have been very buoyant. There's a bit of volatility over the last few days, which I'm sure you'll touch on later. But so far over the last year, they've been very buoyant. The debt market's been very strong, particularly the capital markets, and the equity markets have been strong. And so we need to take an opportunity to make sure that this industry gets its fair share of equity versus other industries. Now, just moving then on to what's going on in the market. From what we can see, North America came out of this very quickly. The airlines have pricing power again. In Europe, particularly Western Europe, I think we're seeing pricing power coming back for a number of the bigger carriers there. Here in Asia Pacific, we haven't seen that yet, but we've seen some changes in the market. Take Indonesia as an example. You've got one dominant player beginning to emerge. In other countries, we're seeing flights opening up out of Thailand, out of Vietnam, out of Philippines, here in Singapore. This is all good for the industry, but at the same time, the sleeping tiger hasn't opened up yet. China hasn't opened up. And the question is, when will it open up? Because a lot of carriers in the period pre-COVID relied very heavily on Chinese tourism and Chinese business traffic to help supplement their operations. And it looks as if that won't happen until earliest second quarter and maybe not even third or fourth quarter, depending on the political situation.
Yes, thank you, Robert. Thank Robert and Dommel here. This is why you have finance guys on the panel, because they totally nail all of this. Dommel, what's your view on this as well? And also, you know, with your shareholding as well, your part Chinese shareholding, what's your sort of thoughts, especially about the two pace of the recovery and the recovery of China?
So I would concur with what Robert has said there in terms of his overview of the market and indeed the equity point. I mean, the Chinese, dropping the border restrictions, who knows, okay? I was asked this morning on another interview when I thought that would occur, Q3, maybe Q4. But it will happen this year because there's an inevitability just given the fact that every other major Southeast Asian country will have done that. And what we're seeing in the rest of the world, if you use that as the roadmap, direct correlation with vaccinations, direct correlation with border restrictions being dropped, dramatic increase in demand. And it's not a small increment, it's dramatic. And that pent-up demand is both business, people want to get back face-to-face because we've all figured out Zoom is fine, but it just doesn't really make it happen. And at the sort of leisure level, a lot of people have saved a lot of money in the last couple of years, and they just want to spend that money and enjoy life and have these set of experiences. That's what we're seeing in the States, Latin America, and Western Europe, and the same will happen here. And that will then correlate over the next 2 years, say 23, 24, to a significant demand for aircraft in an environment where there is limited supply, be it new aircraft or used aircraft manufacturers.
Just touching on that then, because I'm going to ask Gail for this, but for both of you, do you limited supply? So are Airbus in particular justified in thinking about accelerating production rates with this rate 70 kind of idea, towards that? Does that fill you with joy?
Well, I've been
pleasure?
I've been public with my views on that. So I think Airbus are being appropriate in how they're thinking about the ramp up. It may not be as ambitious as they had sort of articulated to the market 6 or 9 months ago. And it isn't so much that the demand isn't there. Demand is probably there. It's just the ability of the supply chain below the airframers to actually deliver. And Gail probably can give us much better insight, but a lot of those sub-supply folks are under a lot of financial stress. And it's not like you can ramp up very easily. So my sense is that the production rates that Airbus want to get to are probably 12 to 24 months behind where they'd like to be, okay? And obviously on the other side of the Atlantic, Boeing are wrestling with no 787 deliveries and no visibility on when they'll restart, and a relatively slow ramp up on the MAX. Used airplanes, airlines, in leasing them, they want the youngest airplanes because they want to be the most fuel efficient. And then there are aircraft parked in the desert where there just isn't MRO capacity to get them back flying, or that's too expensive. So you're going to see a significant retiral percentage increase in the next 12 to 24 months.
Thank you, Dommel. Thank you very much. Gail, what's your sort of thought about production rates Because, you know, you've got to make some of them, some of the parts, well, the most important parts, some would say.
No, there's no doubt that, you know, the supply chain is under constraint right now. Again, we had to virtually stop all production and restart it, and it's not something that you do easily. And it creates here and there some difficulties, but we're really working on that. It's affecting the short term, and Donald and Robert have very well explained the challenges in the very short term. I think we can also take a higher look of our business, of our market. Like, go back to a 20-year output, you know? Forget about 22. We're gonna make it. You know, the industry is resilient. We're gonna find the ways. We do at CFM with our supply chain. When you look at the longer term, I am convinced that because of the desire of the public to travel, even the business public, we are going to see a growth of the traffic that will continuously exceed the growth of the GDP in the coming 20 years, for about 1% a year, the difference between the two. And it's very important because what it means is that over the next 20 years, the fleet, the commercial fleet, will be multiplied by 1.5. There will be somewhere around 34,000 new aircraft being delivered in the next 20 years. 23,000 of them being where CFM, you know, works, which is the narrow body. So, I mean, definitely 2022 is still a few hurdles to go through, but the longer term, we need to fix on that. Longer term is still extraordinary brilliant for our industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Captain Isam, I'm going to ask you a question, just as one of the questions that I wanted to get you to talk about as an airline CEO. What are you seeing on the business travel recovery? What are your expectations? You have a business class, I believe, so tell us what your thought is for this year and how business travel is going to... And if anybody else wants to chip in, do. Otherwise, we'll leave business travel with that comment here.
So, yes, Mark, and first and foremost, I agree with my peers on the panel. The issues of supply chain is an issue, at least for the next 18 to 24 months. Hence, in Malaysia Aviation Group, where we are very cognizant of these issues, henceforth, we actually calendared our new aircraft deliveries on quarter 2, quarter 3, 2023, allowing the supply chain issues to resolve itself, to stabilize itself. With regards to the other portion that I believe, I can't remember whether Donald spoke about it, the industry to a certain extent need to be responsible in inducing the capacity into the market at least for the next 12 months, and thinking and knowing the issues revolving around restriction of travels, border closures, and so forth. Coming back to your question, Mark, we foresee that the corporate travel will rebound back very slowly. What will lead into the marketplace is actually leisure and VFR traffic. That will actually lead the recovery of passenger movement in the aviation sector. But nevertheless, like, you know, how I wish I'm in Singapore today, Mark. But because of the constraint of the limited VTL flights, I don't know how Bollingham got there, but I was not able to get a seat, and it caused me to be there, to be away for 3 days. Henceforth, that's why it's Zoom. What was mentioned earlier, yeah, to a certain extent, Zoom is good, but physical interaction is very important as well. So, in a nutshell, we believe that leisure and VFR market will kick off first. The corporate business travelers will come in later at a slower pace.
Thank you, Captain Isam. Thank you very much. I think we can all concur, because we've all made the effort to come here, and it was for those of us who, even if you live in Singapore, it's a big effort to move around and to travel. And we all deserve a medal, quite frankly, for doing what we have done.
But still, Mark, on the flights I took, the business class was full, which means that if the government start removing those restrictions, I mean, 85% of the routes right now have restrictions. Once we remove those restrictions, people will travel. With all the hurdle it took for us to come here, the business class in the plane I took was full, which means that there's hope. We need to just come back to a world where people are not submitted to these kind of stupid rules.
So what?
Mark,
Yes.
I'd like to chip in what Gal spoke earlier. You know, seriously, government and international bodies must have a very cohesive coordination to accelerate recovery. We have a very disorderly relaxation of border opening. And you know, if we are serious of rebooting the industry, the economy, government and policy makers must really work together the geopolitical landscape. This is very important. Otherwise, the industry will be recovering in a lackadaisical manner. My view.
Yeah, I would like to add to that because around the region, you know, a lot of countries are planning to opening up by end of this month. And I think for ASEAN with 700 million people, ASEAN as a body by itself must come together and have a discussion. And most of these countries have gone on, completed their 2-dose vaccinations. A lot of them have completed their booster shots, and some are even going on to second booster shots. I think it's time to open up borders because there's a lot of pent-up demand. We saw that in Malaysia when domestic borders were opened up, interstate was opened up in September. That was a huge spike. And now people are waiting and get a lot of queries on a daily basis. When are they opening borders? Even when recently Vietnam announced and Thailand announced and even Singapore VTL resumed, everything was sold off even with that limited seats.
How confident are you though? Because
I'm very confident of those countries that announced. I think still you need to come as a grouping and have one rule. You can't have different the for entry into different countries. I had a folder disc stick, you know, and I had to have so many nostril probes for the past few days and the next few days too.
we've got a few more lined up. Absolutely.
Yep.
No. Okay, great. Well, let's talk a bit about on that. I think we get the message, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Let's talk a little bit about the size and shape of the industry, the winners and the losers here, because the industry. There's always changes. The dynamics of an industry out of a crisis tends to change. Sometimes some of the names that should go don't go. Some of the surprising ones get stronger. Starting with you, Kim Hai, just to sort of kick us off here. You're actually growing at the moment. You're launching a new airline. You must be mad. No. Congratulations. Why now? And what are the risks? You're in Australia. There's startups. Is it the startup opportunity where you can come in without those new entrant, you're a new entrant, the barriers to entry are different. Lease, you've got some 737-800s, I don't know if you got them from these guys, but probably they cost you, not much. So why?
Well, in our case, it's very different. Of course, COVID hit everybody. And in the case of domestic Australia, there are a lot of barriers to entry, even within domestic Australia, when you know the business well. The slots are all taken, the airport space all gone, all the gates are gone, pilots is a problem. And so when COVID hit, everybody got slammed very badly. The two major carriers, Qantas and Virgin, of course, were very badly affected. They stood down a lot of aircraft, a lot of staff. And so we got thinking that perhaps that was an opportunity for us to get into domestic. So that's why from the time in March when everything happened in Australia to November, we have already started a new domestic airline, part of the group, a new domestic airline, simply because there suddenly was the space within Australia to be able to get into airports, to be able to get engineers and pilots and so on. So it's a little bit different for us in Australia as compared to the rest of the world.
And what makes you think you can, make a go of it, Kim Hai? Because there are, Bonza is coming along, and you missed that name, by the way. You could have had a crazy name for your airline there. It's a great one, isn't it? What makes you think that you're going to make it?
Well, obviously everybody thinks they are good. Before COVID, we have had almost 20 years of uninterrupted profit. So that already gives us some credential of saying that we know how to run an airline. In fact, in the 10 years before COVID or so, we actually made more money, absolute, than Qantas. You may not believe it. So that's not because we're that good, that's because Qantas is that bad. But that gives us the confidence that we really know the lay of the terrain. We know what airline business is all about in Australia. And we are very well established in Australia. We have a fleet of 60 aircraft all over Australia. So we know Australia. We may not have been in domestic in terms of the jets, but we know what airlines are all about. So that gave us the confidence that we can probably, better than anybody else, give it a shot to have the third major domestic carrier in Australia.
How many, in say 2 or 3 years, what are your aspirations in terms of fleet size? Have you got a thought?
Well, obviously to be successful, you need a certain size. So we hope that we will keep growing from where we are. We hope that we can bring in 6, 8, 10 aircraft a year. And a meaningful size would be between 20 to 30 jets in Australia.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. Bo, let's talk about AirAsia. You used to be the new kid on the block. You used to be the upstart. Now you're a sort of almost legacy LCC. I'm being naughty there because I don't like that word either. But tell us about the opportunities perhaps for AirAsia to come out of this, because Tony Fernandez, your great leader, did talk the other day about launching new airlines. I mean, I know he's an ambitious chap.
Yeah.
But what's your view here?
I think there's a lot of opportunity, and we predominantly operate in ASEAN. There's 2 more airlines joint ventures that we are looking at. I'm not at liberty to disclose that, but there's 2, and we are very confident by that most probably will be announced later this year, and we are hoping by end of this year we will get 2/3 of our fleet flying, and of course with all the governments around the region having lifted all these restrictions, and we will definitely grow in 2024.
You will grow in 2024?
Yeah, second half of 23 and 24 there are plans to ramp it up.
Right, good.
And I think Indonesia, Philippines is a huge opportunity. I think that will be the time.
But you've always said that, and I get that. I understand the huge opportunity bit, but we're in a place where you have got a very difficult situation, with your balance sheet, but also with growth. So what's going to be the difference this time round?
I think it's very simple. Open up borders, and we will fly. I think here it's about one. If you don't open up borders, I can say anything that I can, and nothing is going to happen. It's even with everyone else. So open up borders, and we will fly, and that's how you grow. And you're going to get cash coming in, and that's how it goes.
So you need to get back to the growth rhythm.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. Captain Isam, I'm going to ask you. What opportunities do you see? Because MAS has been through so many competitors. One here who disrupted the market. There's another low-cost airline, I believe, looking, thinking in Malaysia to come along, and more than one.
Marriott.
Oh yes. Sorry, the name of it. Sorry, apologies. What about MAS? What's your growth path?
Mark, we are bullish, but we are cautiously optimistic to a certain extent. And while 2021 was supposed to be a year of recovery, but that kind of played down and was a year like no other aviation industry has seen. If you go back to 2020, because you remember Q1 was a good year for most airlines, and out of the 12 months, 9 months were impacted. 2021 was entirely whole 12 months was impacted. And fortunately, with our agreement with our creditors, we were able to sustain 2021. Henceforth, with a yield active focus, we were able to generate cash positive in October 2021, and very aware that capacity is key, not to over capacity, not to induce too much capacity in the market that you can't handle. At the same time, you need to be aligned with the market reopening, with the travel borders reopening. So Malaysia Aviation Group, we will be announcing our results in the next couple of weeks. It's a fantastic year for us for 2021. We've set out our long-term business plan that comprises from 2021 to 2025. We are currently ahead of our budget, 2021 unaudited at this current time, 32% ahead of our budget. So we're looking at a very fantastic future. We know that, I know that I have to continue competing with both, but we are very bullish, at the same time optimistic, Mark.
And Captain, you talk about capacity discipline there, which is probably not what low-cost carriers want to hear. Actually, you're gonna go for it in terms of putting seats into the market, right?
That's the nature of the beast.
That's the nature of the beast.
Yes, nature of the beast. So I believe.
But not irresponsible capacity.
No. I'm not accusing you of that. Don't worry, sir. But Captain Nizam, I mean, you've got capacity. It's sitting behind you on your right shoulder, the A380. How is it going there? You could throw a few of those on a few routes and get some capacity going.
It's for sale, Mark. Would you like to get one?
Yeah, I love the aircraft. I think most of us do. How's it going? How's that sale process going? Any progress you can tell us about?
Yes, Mark. We are in deep conversation with a few of our interested parties since Q4 last year. And as you're aware that we will be launching a wide-body campaign RFP soon. The 380 will also be in trade. The aircraft is on long-term parking today. We have not flown the aeroplane for the last 22 months. And the 380 doesn't fit our model. That's being realistic. We cannot serve the market with this too big of an aeroplane. And that was one of the legacy issues that Malaysia Aviation Group was shouldering for the last 7-8 years. And we are very clear that 380 is not in play for the future of Malaysia Aviation Group. So we are having deep conversation with Boeing. We are having deep conversation with Airbus to ascertain what's the best way forward.
Is it going to be the same, Robert, going forward? I mean, are we going to see some big names? I'm thinking about Cathay. You know, I'm thinking about AirAsia. I don't know. Are we going to see some? I'm not calling on you. I'm just saying, Lion Air's got trouble. Are we going to see some big names, big name changes over this period, some consolidations even, etc.?
Let's start with the second part of your question first, consolidation. We're already seeing it. Let's think, what have we seen in the last year? Spirit and Frontier potentially tying up together. Tata buying over Air India, and bear in mind that also then involves the stakes that they have in AirAsia India. It also involves the stakes they have in Vistara. So probably we're going to see more consolidation. And then Korean and Asiana. So yes, we're already seeing consolidation in the airline industry, but at the moment it's been domestic. It's not been cross-border. Don't forget as well, we have a booming freight industry. And that market has gone gangbusters for the last 2 years. And you're going to see more carriers develop in that market. One of the main things that's happened during COVID is a lot of people have spent a lot of time on the internet ordering packages, my wife included. And so basically, we're going to see a lot more carriers moving into that market as well. So I think we're going to see some change of shape in that market. Now, in terms of who wins, who loses, I think we're through the worst of the downturn. Unless we get another crisis of some type. We're all watching Ukraine and Russia very, very carefully at the moment. I know Russia started live firing off the Ukrainian coast as just an exercise earlier today. This has already prompted insurers to begin to get worried about people flying over that area. We're going to see, unfortunately, our Asian customers having to fly longer routes, burning more high-priced fuel on the way there. So some of this could impact, but it comes back to fundamentals. Who has the ability to raise new equity and rally their creditors if they hit a problem? And the carriers you've mentioned, they've all done that. They've rallied their creditors and they've been able to raise new equity. It's the ones that don't are the ones who are going to have problems.
Has this been an opportunity to sometimes somehow sweep away some of the legacy? I'm thinking of the A380 perhaps. I'm thinking of the older 747s, but some of the metal in the business, sweep it away. Time to move on. Perhaps time to move on some of the people in the industry that are legacy. Time to move on some of the. Sorry, I'm not obviously looking at you or anything like that, but crikey. Perhaps sweep away some of the practices where we say that's fundamentally broken. We don't want an airline that operates like that, please. This is what it's going to look like. Comment.
Yeah, look, each crisis brings a set of learnings in our industry, and you can go back on a variety of crises since the early 70s. This time around, I would say the learnings from the airline side are, I honestly believe this, most airlines have woken up to the fact that they don't need to own any aircraft. We've been saying this as lessors for a long time. The reality is we have investment grade balance sheets. They have balance sheets that are not investment grade. Airlines need to be world-class sales and marketing businesses and operation expertise. They don't need to own aircraft. So each time we've seen a crisis, the percentage of aircraft leasing goes up. We're going to see it this time. And I think aircraft lessors will now own control over 50% of the market. And that will continue to be higher and higher until the next crisis. Second learning is the resilience of the sector is unquestioned, both at the lessor and the airline side. This crisis has tested that. And the learning out of that is that the capital markets will continue to support good franchises. So I think that's the second learning. The A380s of this world, look, I love flying the A380, but its future is a nightclub, and I would say that as in a physical nightclub, you could have a whole franchise of A380 nightclubs globally. I'm just trying to keep the place alive here, right?
Good man.
And the reimagination of what you need to be successful to run an airline going forward, and it's all about digitization, being at the front foot. And all of that captured within a core philosophy of being as sustainable an operation as possible.
Done, well said.
Sorry, can I just add one point?
Yes.
You mentioned people. I disagree with you. I think one of the big challenges our industry as a whole has over the next 2 to 3 years is getting people back into our industry. And I see this as being one of the supply side constraints, whether you're a sub-supplier to a manufacturer or an MRO. A lot of people who left the industry may not come back. And so this will either result in wage inflation, or we have to change the way that we recruit people going forwards and let them realize that there's a career in this industry for young people. And if we don't, we're going to have all of the 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds retiring, and we're going to have problems replacing them, and all that experience will disappear.
That's well said, Robert. And following on from what Dom was saying, let's touch for a couple of... We have 2 more questions, actually. We've only got a few minutes left. First one is sustainability. I've been on many panels. We talked about that for a lot. We're only going to talk about it for a little while. Basically, I've got one question is, by 2035, I'm going to ask you all, can we have a zero emissions aircraft in operation? Anybody fancy it?
Start with the engine guy.
Yeah, zero.
I was waiting for Gail to pop up.
No, but zero.
An open rotor beckons, perhaps.
Zero emission is a great target for sure, and we will come as close as we can to that. If we take CFM, for instance, we are at the forefront of innovation, and we launched this RISE program in 2021. It stands for Revolutionary Innovations for Sustainable Engines, and we're going to change the paradigm of aircraft engine. It's going to look nothing to what you're used to. It's going to be basically an open fan, with 4-meter diameter fan blades in the front. And this new platform, new engine, the goal is to make it 20% more efficient compared to the LEAP, which was already 40% more efficient compared to the engines the first CFM56 replaced in the early 80s. So 20% is a big number, but if you associate that with sustainable aviation fuel or even hydrogen, then you definitely see a path towards achieving what the industry has been committing, which is a carbon neutral by 2050.
Bo, will you be buying any?
No, I mean, we have ordered all our 321s and...
They're not zero emission, are they?
No. And not only that, we're working a lot of initiatives as well with all the manufacturers. And we are hoping, I think I'm pretty confident.
Gentlemen who finance these beasts, what do you...
Well, look, the reality is the only zero emissions aircraft you can invest in today are electric. They are, tiny part of the solution, but they are part of the solution. The leap forward will be hydrogen-powered aircraft. I suspect we're 15 years away from that. The open rotor idea with SAF is going to get us there. But the good news is, I think on a global basis, certainly with all the airline CEOs I speak with, they are setting their clear vision and objective to get to zero neutral. And as an industry, the airline industry should applaud itself, frankly, with its emissions credentials and the commitments that we've made. Our industry is an easy poster child for being beaten up. We're still less than 3% of global emissions. I'd hate to be in the shipping industry and try to, defend their credentials. So I think the engine manufacturers, the airframers, the lessors, we've been investing billions and billions of dollars in most fuel efficient aircraft possible, and we will get there. I've no doubt we will get there.
I'm going to leave, sorry, Captain Mizam, yes?
Yeah, Mark, I'd like to echo Domhnall with regards to the aviation industry has been seen as a naughty boy of carbon emission. And, clearly, airlines are not the main contributor, but airlines OEMs have made a very credible commitment to the journey of SAF. As you can see, in our area, in Asia Pacific region, they have lots of airlines conducting demonstration on flights using SAF. And this is a commitment that we've made. And we must put all effort to improve our environment that we live in. And again, I would like to re-emphasize this. Don't point the fingers totally on airlines. There are other industries which emit carbon worse than airlines.
Captain Izam, and I'm going to give you the stage as we're going to finish off with a slightly different question. Thank you, and we'll leave sustainability there because we are going to be talking about sustainability as we should, not just talking about it, but doing things about it for the next, or as part of our careers, frankly. So, Captain Izam, I'm going to ask you a question. It's a bit of a fun one. Let's see if you can rise to the challenge. I don't doubt you will. You're running a Malaysia Airlines. If you could be the CEO of another airline, which one would it be and why?
I'm retiring soon, Mark. I'm 62 years old.
Oh, that's young, mate.
Golf. Well, if given the opportunity, if I decide to continue my career, I would submit my resume to Malaysia Airlines again. I have full confidence and very bright future of Malaysia Aviation Group.
Very good, very good. Kim Hai, who would you like to run if you had the choice? Qantas is good one. What do you think?
I wouldn't want to run an airline again.
You wouldn't? No? Okay. Gail, who would you run if you could? Come on.
I'm so happy where I am right now.
Oh, don't give me all that rubbish. Give me an airline you fancy. Come on, I wish I could run Qatar Airways. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? Go on, Gail. I'll let you think about it. Domhnall really wants to have a go here. Come on.
Yeah, well, I've always wanted to run an airline called Fresh Air.
Right, okay. And what would they operate? Vertical Aerospace Electric.
They'll be operating A380 nightclubs globally.
Nice, I like it. Right, good, I like it. Bo, you've got a chance now. Who would you...
I will never go back into the aviation. I've had 20 years of it. I think I would like to go into the medical, run a hospital. That's what I told Tony.
Yeah.
Set up a low-cost hospital and I'll run it for you.
Yeah, okay, very good. You're going to leave the industry. We need people like you in the industry. Don't go yet, please. Roberts, come on, who would you... And I'm going to ask Gail again. I'm not going to let him off the hook. He's going
I'd love to be Donald's chairman.
Really? Oh my God! So we're going to be running an airline here, not in the hospital business or some finance business. Anyway, Gail, you're not going to give me an airline. You're thinking about it, aren't you? Air France. I mean, come on.
It's too serious of a job to come to give it to a poor engine guy, that doesn't do anything else than building engines. So,
Very good.
Air France, Air France is something very special.
It is.
Just because I'm French, I like Air France because wherever I am in the world, I step into an Air France airplane and I'm in France, and they really know how to carry that brand. So, it would be a good pick.
Very good. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate your insight, everybody. I'm going to call it a day now. We've reached 000. I think we're about on time. So I would just like to thank everybody for coming. We've got a packed house here. So thank you for your attention. But especially a very big thank you for everybody, for Captain Izam, for Kim Hai, Gael, Robert, Dommel, and Bo. Really, really appreciate your input and your insights. Please give them a big round of applause, everybody. That's very good.
Thank you.
And we've got an on-time departure, so enjoy the rest of the show from us, FlightGlobal, from Experia as well, for myself. Have a great show here and have a great time in Singapore.